Hello, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I am Denise Collison with SHI International, and we are partnering with CDO Magazine, MIT CDOIQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. And today I have the pleasure of talking with Bojan Duric. He is the Chief Data Officer of the City of Virginia Beach. Welcome, Bojan. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thanks for having me, and definitely looking forward for some discussion to have.
All right. So according to McKinsey, organizations are investing trillions to become more data-driven, but only 8% successfully scale analytics to get value from their data. What are your thoughts on how organizations can make investments that will enable them to get value from their data?
To be honest, when you said 8%, I was quite surprised that many. Not that little, that many, to be honest. Especially from the government perspective, or I hear the story like, the government is collecting our data, the government is, we have so much data as the byproducts of so many businesses. And I'm just assuring everybody, we don't have time but they have to analyze all the data that might be coming to us. And now we're talking about the value. So an investment. So I'm going to go back ultimately. Investment needs to be in people, definitely. So where I'm going with this is education. So from the perspective, and let me now play a little bit of the devil's advocate at this point, and on two sides of the coin. On one side, you have that value. And everybody is talking about the data as the asset and value, but really we're managing that as the asset. So I recently studied how much it costs us actually to have that data piece. So at least to have the financial kind of like ROI measurements out of that. But where I would go with the whole how you can use and leverage being data driven is actually to understanding the other side, understanding the risk of both not using your data. The second one is of using your data but incorrectly. And lastly, I'm saying always, there are so many ways to use the data, but as many to abuse the data. So from that perspective, I think investing in people, both from the practitioner side to actually start delivering the insights and delivering what's actually meaningful from the business perspective. At the same time, from the business unit's perspective and leaders making the decision to, as a matter of fact, understand the both sides, where the value and the risk is. And one of the examples from the data literacy I would put is like lots of, when I'm actually doing this and talk with the leaders, lots of times I heard the story and we are making some decision based on the average. And I'm like always, okay, that's good, but do you know what's behind that average? How many of the data points they have before they start jumping on and saying, so that's why I'm saying risk of making decision of someone that needs to understand so they feel comfortable, like risk and gain from that perspective, saying, you know what, it's too much risk for me, this, or the value is greater than the risk of the data so I can use.
Yeah, that is, so I loved what you said about going back to kind of investing in the people, but you also touched on at the end of there, back kind of all the way back to the book that you read about curiosity, about being curious, not just going with the average, but asking more questions about that and not just settling for, oh, this is the average and, we're going to go for it. So I think that investment in curiosity is also important there. So, and I, it's kind of almost a little bit scary to think that you think that 8% is high, but it makes a lot of sense when you think about the volume of data.
Absolutely,
that
exactly.
Organizations are collecting, and it really makes sense. And I think it's an important question to ask as an organization, like, where do those investments lie? Where are we going to get the most value out of our data? If we spend here, how will we, see that value back?
And just, if you don't mind me, just to mention, like, the value can come from the different angles, like depending if you are looking just as the value add, risk mitigation could be the value that you're adding, operational efficiency, or from the data perspective, you can have the functional, you can have even emotional value out of the data. So it is like a different value. So everything depends what organization and what stage they are from their data maturity level, and what they find where the value for them is. So that's why I'm saying the 8% I find really large number, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that what you just said about the emotional value of data is something that no one talks about, but it's definitely important. I mean, we talked about it creating a trust and a transparency, empowerment, ownership. I mean, there are a lot of emotional connections to the data. I think that was really insightful. So you talked about this quite a lot actually during our conversation, but in order to get value out of your data, every part of the organization has to be part of it. They have to touch it. Every employee needs to have their hands in it to understand, kind of what their part and role is in getting value out of that data. So how do you make data accessible at all the levels? And then how do you teach employees to use and understand the data, like data literacy, if you will, to bring value to the organization? I think you talked about your data academy, and that's probably one way if you want to retouch on that. But are there other things that we can do as an organization to make the data accessible and then really get people comfortable using the data?
Yes, as a matter, again, back to people and how the data flows and all of that. But from the, maybe I'm just gonna touch like one of the, I find that even to be more philosophy rather than anything else. So we did from that perspective, like from the data accessibility, as the City of Virginia Beach, we created our open data portal and all of that. I'm gonna touch a little bit on the whole that open source. I call it open source philosophy. It is how you can, and I think President Kennedy said it's not what state can do for you, but as a matter of fact, what you can do for the state and for the government. That's exactly, I would say, where what actually can bring that whole data accessibility. When when we have that like level, I'm not going to say the ethics at this point, integrity, I would say proactivity, that you are asking what I actually can do to bring and help something and how I can leverage the data. But that actually requires investment in people so they can understand, as we were talking, both sides of the coin of the data. So it's not just giving people the tool and creating the process and saying, because we do have that. That was actually the easy button fix. You go, you buy the tool, you evaluate the other ones. The tool almost by itself come with the process because they embedded so much. These days, the tools are like great, like communication can be done, sharing, all of that is already like almost embedded with the tools, including even the advanced analytics technology and all of that. I mean, like amazing way that moved from 5 years ago. But again, if we don't have that, I would say the culture that you change, you invest in yourself and you're asking yourself what I can do and bring it up, then all of that is just like, I would say, unutilized assets that we have, including the data. So back, it's just the people, and I say let's each and every minute that we invest in each other, as a matter of fact, and just sharing. And some of the things that I encourage, like with our data smart collective, those, it's almost like tweets. We kind of use those productivity tools. It's like, hey, I read, and I'm encouraging my folks and saying, listen, if you are ending up your week and you didn't do at least 20% of your time developing yourself, both professionally and personally, we have to talk.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I really don't want to overburn someone so they can. It's not me being nice, but me being proactive. So saying, you know what, because everything is moving. Nobody, all of us, I read recently, they have it, I forgot even the name of that syndrome, but many of us are kind of like fitting in that, like everything is moving so fast that you sometimes feel left behind. So you need to, on the other side, sharing with the other ones help us out, as a matter of fact, to learn new stuff and actually benchmark yourself to see, am I actually behind, or we are just running at the same pace, just like within vicinity. So those are the things that I'm encouraging and people are sharing. I'm learning from them. Another is like we are, as a matter of fact, doing the assessment how far we go and on what topics from the quality perspective we are now kind of like discussing. Are we talking about the fifth grade math, or we actually moved to college already? So just to put a little bit more in the different perspective, how we measure the success and quality.
Yeah. That's amazing. Thank you for that. I'm going to actually wrap up with a tools questions. The only tools question I'm going to ask you today, and it's about artificial intelligence. So how critical is AI to value delivery? And are there other tools that are critical that organizations must have aside from their people?
Absolutely. So going back to AI and the book Greg Orme, Curiosity and Creativity. So I strongly recommend the book. For me, it was really easy read, and as a matter of fact, resonated with many things I believe in. So it's really great to say how we can utilize and where AI. AI is definitely there, and it will be. It's embedded in many tools. So I'm not gonna say that as the tool, but the tool that I see all of us need, even in order to get that AI working, is the some kind of the data sharing, data governance tools. Uh, I'm talking this from the open source perspective because we build that like open data using open sources. They are the tools to share the data. There are some civic standards, so to talk the same language with that. So the tool within the bigger corporation that they have lots of data assets to kind of like catalog important data that you need from both IT side, the data side, and business side along. Now I'm going to talk about the critical piece of the tools that needs to have with the lineage, so we can see when I change this in this data set, whom else I need to actually inform, because I'm going to affect them, because I really don't want to get the call why my process is broken. And you're like, oh my God, where's that happening? And you spent 3 days troubleshooting because you changed the name of the field.
Yeah.
We've been through that and all of
Yeah.
that, and everybody's saying it's easy. And many of us are still managing that in spreadsheets or some of the online tools that they are heavily, again, depending on human interaction, what we put in. So going back now to AI, since it's part of many of the tools, I'm seeing AI to be the part of these catalog discovering tools to help us out, because we're going to start getting more and more data. And at some point, however we catalog this, it's going to be hard to find, like almost you being in the library without librarian to help you out to find it without the reference book. So good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I have to tell you, Bojan, I really enjoyed this conversation. There's so many nuggets of wisdom. So I just wanted to say thank you for joining me today. And for all those listening, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews.
Thank you.